Here at Apex Radiology, we understand that your health is our most valuable treasure. With our state-of-the-art mammogram services, we extend our promise in offering the highest quality care. Our cutting-edge technology ensures the highest level of accuracy and precision for our mammogram services, including general screening, diagnostics and tomosynthesis, a breakthrough in breast health. Tomosynthesis, or 3D mammography, captures multiple images of the breast from different angles, creating a detailed three-dimensional view. This means even subtle abnormalities can be identified, ensuring the most accurate results. Our dedicated team is committed to your well-being, providing support and guidance every step of the way. Don't wait. Schedule your mammogram today with Apex Radiology. Because when it comes to your health, you deserve the very best.
Welcome to another earnings call here on Learn, Grow, Invest. Today we have the Image Plus Consultants Limited Q2 2024 earnings call. I'll be joined by the CEO of Image Plus, Keisha Anderson. So welcome, Keisha.
Good morning, Jermaine. Thank you, and thanks to your community as well for joining us this morning.
Yes, I know we're going to have another great earnings call, so I'll hand over to you for opening prayer.
Okay, let us pray. Father God, we give thanks for today. We thank you, dear Lord, that in the midst of all circumstances, you are God. You're the same God of yesterday, that you are today, and you will be tomorrow. We thank you, dear Lord, for your faithfulness to our company and to our country, Jamaica. Lord, we just ask that you continue to go before us. If there anything that we haven't asked, dear Lord, we ask that you, seeing all, grant it in our favor. We thank you, dear Lord, for every team member, every stakeholder, referring doctors. We thank you for our board of directors. We thank you for our shareholders, and we thank you, dear Lord, for patience. We ask that you continue to equip us to do our work in enhancing healthcare in Jamaica land we love. In your name I pray as I hand over this meeting to you. Amen. Thank you, Jermaine.
No problem.
Okay, so let us get right into it. And as we start, I would like to ask our shareholders to indulge me in just taking a moment to acknowledge the passing of our director, a beloved husband of one of our existing team members, and also director, Dr. Allison. Dr. Vaughn passed away in August, the last month of our second quarter. The time on the board as a public company would have been short, but as a family member, Dr. Vaughn always added his knowledge and expertise as the company grew. So we want to really stop to acknowledge and to offer sincere condolences to his family and to also his work colleagues at Focus Ophthalmics. Thank you, Jermaine. Will you go with the next slide for me? All right. Okay. So Q2 had several milestones for us in many regards. So in July, we would have hosted our first ever AGM on the 28th, and we had 99 attendees in person online. And though that may seem like not a big number compared to our number of shareholders, we thought it was significant that those persons took the time to attend. We think it was efficiently run, and that we see it as a significant step to improving as we go forward and grow from strength to strength. So we thank everybody for attending. In Q2 also, we did one thing that we committed to in our prospectus. It was delivered, and that was the implementation of mammography services. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the results. And in Q2 as well, we identified and started the payment terms towards our real estate purchase. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well as when we get to the point of looking at the outlook. I would also now like to go to the specific results. I think, Jermaine has put up my slide that I've forgotten to speak about. I'm sorry about that. So in Q2, I think we should just do a quick synopsis of what we did as it relates to our corporate social responsibility. So you know that good service starts from ensuring that you have an engaged team. So our annual team trip occurred in July of 2023. And also in July, we participated as a team in the annual Relay for Life. This allowed us to not only bond as a team and build our relationships, but also to do our part in supporting the fight against cancer in Jamaica. In addition, we spent some of our dollars investing in the future of radiographers here in Jamaica by supporting them in their activities. We purchased their shirts, which helps them when they go out and do presentations and offer general support. And we also have one of our very own radiographers, our chief radiographer, who works very, very closely with the Association of Radiographers at UAE. We supported two conferences, the American College of Gynecology, their conference, and also the UA Medical Alumni Association conference that was held in August. These activities help us to not only support the education of our practitioners, but also help us to cement our bonds between them as our referring physicians and ourselves. I will now move into our financial results. Thank you, Jermaine. All right. So I like to always start with our case count because, as you know, really that's how we make our revenue, our business model. I keep saying every earnings call is simple. And if we look, we will see that we grew our case count to 28,729 cases, a growth of 4% over the 27,000 plus cases that we did up to the end of Q2 last year. A closer look will show that we had a significant increase in our fluoroscopy cases, 100%, and that we had a reasonable 18% increase in our X-ray cases. Where we had some challenges in this quarter, which you will see impacting the numbers when I get to, will have been in our CT case count that went down 15%, moving from 7,150 to just over 6,000 this year. And our ultrasound case count, that was not as significant a fall off, but from 10,424 to 10,036. Our nuclear medicine, it's a small fall off, but it's pretty consistent. And this one, I think we have already started to see, well, in all of them, actually, we have seen a turnaround as we're moving into Q3. But the impact of CT being down, if you go to the next slide, Jermaine, will be very, very evident in our actual end result. So for the quarter, our gross profit was 162 million, which would have been down compared to last year at 174.8 million. Our profit before tax was 39 million, which would have been down compared to the 64 million last year, resulting in our earnings per share being 3 cents. If we look for the 6-month period, we'll see that the gross profit of 354 million would be down slightly, 2.8% from the 363 million it was last year. And that's because our revenues were pretty flat, but our cost of sales, our direct cost, as we're starting to call it, since cost of sales is more when you're doing manufacturing, our direct cost went up slightly for the 6-month period for this year. So as at the 6-month period, our profit before tax is 103 million, which is down by 18% compared to the 152 million last year, and our earnings per share ends at 8 cents. I know that to a large extent, this may cause some concern for shareholders. Really, it is as a result of machine downtime, primarily with our CT machine at our 129 Pro location. We do know that machine downtime is typical of the industry, and so what makes a difference is how quickly you're able to get the machine up and running. As management, we would have to look and say, okay, when a machine goes down, is it a technical issue that cannot be addressed, or is it just an issue that needs to be addressed by the procurement of parts? There is a diagnosis process that we go through, and in this case, that was done by our provider who maintains the machines. And at each point, they identified things that were required and those were changed. We actually, in the quarter, had to get G involved to ensure that we got the best technical advice. And once you do that and engage them, then you have to follow the course of action that they prescribe, because of course they also offer warranty on the parts that you're purchasing. As at this point, we have replaced all of the major parts. The question may be, why not buy a new machine? And it would be because by replacing the major parts, you actually give the machine new life. And with the updates that you get from software, the only other thing that would be remaining would be the casing per se of the units. And we've replaced all the major parts. And actually the last part is being installed as we speak. The technician started late last night from our third-party supplier, and they're continuing this morning. So I expect good news this week to say the machine is back up and running. And it wasn't that the machine didn't function at all in the quarter or the 6 months, actually, because this issue has been lagging for a while. But the machine, when it did come up, it was not at a sustained period to say that we were really operational for the period. I am confident that the issue has now been addressed, and I want the shareholders to know that our board is taking it very seriously, and all efforts are being made to ensure that the machine is back up and running. So having the machine down would have impacted significantly to the tune of over 50 million, and that's why it's very, very critical for us to have it up going forward. What I would say, though, as a mitigating factor, is that what we were able to do is to move some of our caseload to our Winchester location, where, because we offer on-call services, we are able to use that extra time in terms of working time to accommodate, to ensure that the patients got to be seen who needed our care, and to ensure that we did, to some extent, mitigate the fall off in revenues from that. I would also add that as a positive, going forward for this quarter, with the implementation of mammography services that started at the latter part of August, we were able to do 229 cases in the very few days that we were up and running. That augurs well for where we are. And it being Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in October, we do hope to see and are seeing a positive impact towards our case count for the quarter that we are currently in. Thank you, Jermaine. All right, so going back now to our expenses, I'm sure the question may be raised by our shareholders, because it would have been a 26% increase in expenses, which could be some cause for concern. So we took the time to really look at it and see what was causing that increase, which are all budgeted increases. The reason that it's showing up so significantly now is because the revenues would have been impacted by the amount that I indicated earlier as the fall off due to the CT at 129 Pro being down. So there was a 25% increase in depreciation, of course, because we added new imaging equipment, and because of the lease agreement with our Otrius property and the long-term nature of it, then there was an increase in right of use of asset due to that lease in particular. There was an increase in professional fees. Being a listed entity now, there'll be fees that we would not have incurred last year that we would now need to be paying as a listed entity. And then there was a 26% increase in salaries and related expenses. And this is because, one, we had to increase our staff count with the addition of 2 new modalities. We would need to add technical staff to be able to offer those. And we also augmented our services for our call center that could accommodate more calls and requests through our WhatsApp lines for appointments. Of course, I'm sure our shareholders would agree that's a good investment for the growth. We don't see a significant increase in staff count necessary going forward now that we have bolstered with what we do need for the future growth. We also had some adjustments in terms of our inflationary amount for staff, and we do by inflation, and also in terms of the overtime expenses, because as I said, when we tried to mitigate the cost of, the fall off in revenue from CT by extending our day, then we would have had overtime costs for our staff. So that would be why we have the increase in admin expenses. And I go back to say again, it didn't catch us by surprise. It was budgeted, and it would be very challenging to hold back on some of these things. You don't want to, as Jamaicans say, cut off your nose to spite your face. So we have to invest for the growth that's coming, even though we had the challenges in the short term for the quarter. And that would have led to the figures that I stated before as it relates to operating profit and profit after tax. So I think we can move on from this slide, Jermaine. Okay, on the asset side of our balance sheet, if we look at it, we would have seen growth in our property, plants, and equipment, and that would be as a result of the purchase of the equipment that we did last year and leading into this year with the mammography units. And then our trade and other receivables would have gone up significantly by 155%. And I want to ensure that there's not too much scare here by persons thinking it is actually aged receivables that we're not collecting. So we took the time in the director's statement to break it out to show that the trade receivables actually only stand at 235.7 million, and the large payer that we continue to facilitate with extended credit terms, we always ensure that we maintain commitment letters in writing for payment timelines, and that we also monitor the payment timelines to see if they deliver as intended, and they have been doing so. And then the other receivables of 373 million, which is the lion's share actually, is as a result of the deposits on the new equipment and the land purchase to develop our new flagship location to come. So that would be the significant increase in our trade and other receivables. All right. As it relates to our borrowings, just a minimal increase there. We will see another impact on our Q3 numbers because we would have done some more borrowing to facilitate the purchase of the MRI unit. Our trade and payables went down slightly. This is just an as-at figure because in most cases, our payables are paid off in large part by the first month or so of the new month. And our credit terms, we always honor our credit terms and pay as we should. Share capital increase on the equity side would have been as a result of our IPO, and the retained earnings, we see it growing healthily as a result of our increase in profit after tax. So there's a 39% growth to 496.3 million. Moving on to our cash flow highlights. So we do see here that our cash and cash equivalent balance has grown. Our cash from operations, as we reinvest in the business, we see the impact there. And our cash from investing will be the funds that we were holding until it would be time to release for the purchase of the assets that I articulated earlier on. Thank you, Jermaine. So I guess at this point, our shareholders want to know, okay, what are we holding on to for the future? And for us here, we are very excited and we think that the future looks very, very bright. So I will start with the first thing. Our MRI equipment landed on the island on this Monday, the 23rd of October. And we intend to have installation and startup operations in Q4. At the start of Q4, which should be before the end of this calendar year, and more will certainly come in regards to that. But we're very excited about the possibility for us. Our team is trained in terms of our technical team. Our radiologists are ready to start reporting, and we have already significant demand. I was in Ocherius as we started some of the preparations just this week, and on one day alone, we had over 20 inquiries about whether or not we offer MRI services. So that's very, very encouraging. The second thing I'd like to share is that we actually have our title for the new property that was purchased. So I'm happy to also share today on this platform for the first time that it is at 33 Lady Musgrave Road in New Kingston. It is a property that we think is attractive because it allows our foot-taking patients to make their way easily there. There are bus routes that run there. It allows those who drive to actually access from several different ways. Therefore, traffic congestion shouldn't be so much of a problem trying to get to us. It allows the ease of access for ambulance services is also there. So the only thing we have to do now is wait a little bit longer for the development. What we intend to do in third quarter leading to the beginning of fourth quarter is to complete all our design conversations, sign off on the architect that is chosen. We have already done a brief and had preliminary conversations with one architect thus far, but we have to go through the rigorous process of choosing and completing. We are doing this in collaboration not only with our internal team, but also with a provider of our machines so that we can ensure that the design and the flow allows for efficiency. For the patient perspective, ease of registration and moving through the rooms, and for us, how we can use it to ensure that we turn over the rooms as efficiently as possible to increase the throughput. We're also going to be able to offer more services here, multiple modalities, as well as more than one room for each of the more popular modalities, which will ensure that for patients, you have to wait less on your appointment time. And we intend to accommodate an interventional suite so that we can also meet the demands in that fast growing area. And so I had articulated at earlier points that though we have now completed the purchase, the development is going to take some time. So we're looking for this in financial year 2025 to come to fruition, but it's here. And we thank your shareholders for the confidence, because it is your money that helped us to do this purchase in cash in total. I would also then like to speak a little bit about the other opportunities that we do see. We believe that where healthcare is in Jamaica, and we do hear that the government is doing their best to enhance the services offered, at least the basic services through the hospitals. We do believe that given all our offerings or modalities, we're going to be poised to become a provider of choice, and we will actively look at opportunities to support consolidation of the industry, to ensure that we are creating value through the IPCL brand, not only for now, but into the future. So our shareholders will not only benefit now, but also benefit for the future, even if they're gifting it to children and grandchildren to come. So we're very excited about the future. Our team is excited, and we thank you for partnering with us and continuing on this journey with us. And I look forward to your questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Keisha. A lot to
digest.
take in. Yes. Congratulations on the new location.
Thank you.
That's a big step. You mentioned briefly a timeline. Is it possible to get an estimate? Now, I know these things can maybe be overruns, maybe hard to determine like total cost, etc. But in your best estimate, how long should it take to, welcome the first client?
Okay, so we are aiming for the end of financial year 2025.
Okay.
So that would be about, 15 months from now? 15, 16
From where we
months.
are, yes. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So the important thing about that, Jermaine, and I think that our shareholders could take heart in, is that we are big about our word and accountability. And when we were going public, we said some plans. We said 3 big plans: 2 new modalities, mammography and MRI, and the purchase of the new location. And I would like our shareholders to say that we have followed through on our word. So I think that is the brand that we are building, and so you should look to us to follow through and to deliver as we promise.
Agreed on that point. Accountability is important. So that is worth noting as well. In terms of the considerations of the new location, right? I imagine that as you might have a budget for the overall execution, is it something that you'd be able to finance with existing cash? Do you think you may need to supplement in terms of funding as you are building out? What's your approach to financing the project through to completion?
All right. So since my board hasn't approved anything yet, I can't just give you a kind of directional answer. To say we have a budget would be too early. So we know the plans that we have. The process is that we upgrade the brief with the input of our internal team, as well as the input of the machine suppliers. We go back to the architect pool, and with that brief, we take their proposal and we select the architect of choice. And then, of course, we know in construction the processes that you'll have to go through and do an RFP for a contractor, and you do your quantity survey, your QS estimates, etc. And so it would be really too early for me to say, but I do estimate that the value of the development is going to be more than the cash that we'll be able to find on our own. So there may be an opportunity there for some kind of partnership, but coming to that partnership would be the significant investment we have already made of the cost of the land.
Okay. So at some point, maybe 2 quarters from now, 2 earnings calls from now, we should maybe have a breaking ground ceremony and
Yes.
a general budget in mind as to what we can expect to
Certainly,
spend and any
certainly. I think by the time we get to our our first quarter in financial year 2025, or even our AGM somewhere around that time, we will definitely have more of that kind of information to share with our shareholders.
Okay, great. So the next question that I wanted to ask you before we get to our questions from our audience, you
Sure.
mentioned the status of the case count and how that would have been, building up for the 6 months. How do you
Yeah.
project the next 2 months in terms of cases, right? So right now you have an MRI machine that is almost back to full function. How many days before? You did say that you expect that this week you should get good news that it's working. So let's assume that all is well for this.
No. MRI won't be. Oh, you mean the CT? The CT will be
Yes,
working.
CT, sorry.
Yes.
Yes. So
Okay.
in terms of so I wanted to understand exactly when we could expect that to be back on stream, and how do you see the number of cases that demand for the last 6 months?
Okay. Generally for cases or for the CT in particular?
Well, just your overall. So we went through a breakdown of the number of cases and how
Sure.
that would have.
Okay. I got you, Jermaine. I got you. All right. So if we see where we are now, we are at 20, well, where we were at the end of Q2, 28,729 cases. And that would be after being impacted significantly by about 2,000, little over 2,000 cases fall off at our 129 Pro location. So we would have been somewhere more in the region of 31,000 cases had that been realized. If we continue at that trend, which I expect us to, then we're going to end the year well over the number of cases that we did last year. So the issue with getting CT back up, because you would see that we grew the case count even without that CT machine. The issue with getting it back up is that our CT modality, just by the nature of the cost of a CT, the intricacies required in doing it and reading it by the radiologist, a CT costs more than an ultrasound and then an X-ray and a fluoroscopy study. And so the per patient revenue for CT count is what you see really impacting by the fall off in revenue. So what is going to happen for the coming 6 months with the machine being back up and MRI brought on stream, which also has a higher per patient revenue, is that you will see the case count grow, but you're also going to see the revenue grow at a faster pace because of the reintroduction of CT at 129 Pro and the addition of MRI in Ultrareus.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question, right? What's the impact that shareholders can expect for revenues? Are we to expect? I know it's early, but are we to expect growth from last year's numbers based on, I guess, what you just mentioned? Do you have maybe an estimate, 20% growth, 30% growth on last year?
I'm not going to have you draw my tongue, but what I can tell you is that we're projecting and we're working towards growth exceeding what we did last year for revenue, definitely. And we know we have a gap to close, right? And in closing the gap, we focus on the revenue, but also continue to manage prudently the expenses so that the net profit figure, which is what matters in the end, is actually also realized. So we're targeting something. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And my final question for now, in consideration to the build out of this new location, what is your mindset relating to dividend payments, right? Should shareholders expect a dividend payment within the next 15 months, I guess, as you try to conserve cash to do the build out?
So I think I can't answer that definitively because of course we'd have to, if we're going to consider a dividend, we'd have to give our notice and follow all the rules of the stock exchange. But what I can say is the mindset. I think our directors acting on behalf of the shareholders are very conscious that there are two ways that people earn from stock. They earn from the long-term value of the stock over time, which we are confident in that given all our plans and where we see our future in the Jamaican landscape, but also they earn from the cash flows through dividend payments. And we recognize that there would be an expectation for cash flow, and we have that in mind and are trying our best to balance that with the plans for growth. So I think we will be fair to our shareholders for the financial year 2024. That's the most I can say at this point in time, but it's definitely top of mind.
Okay, reasonable. I know the next earnings call, I'll probably bring it up once more to see where
As
you are
you
at
should,
that.
because that's where the community is also waiting to hear.
Yep. All right, so let's take some questions from our audience who is participating
Sure,
here. So our
sure.
first comment at 9:02 a.m. Elaine is saying that he's a little bit disappointed. He's not happy. Elaine, I hope that some of the answers would have gotten through the earnings calls would have addressed some of your concerns. So let's see, how that goes. So his first question here: there's been 2 consecutive quarters of decline in profits and EPS. What measures are being taken to address this trend?
Okay, so I hope I would have answered that. So the impact would have been because of our CT unit being down at 129 Pro. So getting the unit back up, increasing throughput once the unit is back up, and adding 2 new modalities that add revenues are going to make a difference to the results that we see for the remainder of the year. And I believe, one thing I can appreciate about the shareholder is that when the going is good, he comments and congratulates, and when he's concerned, he asks the questions, and that's fine. It's important because accountability matters.
Agreed. Next question is relating to machine downtime. It's a hot trend, I believe we're seeing also with other persons in the industry. So you'd have mentioned the steps that are taken to address the issue, but the
Right.
second part of his question, did you identify any additional vendors for parts parts?
Outsourcing, yes. I think I spoke to it at the AGM, and the answer is yes. We actually got somebody else to come and assess the situation, and they agreed with the course of action that was being taken. And you see, the thing to appreciate is that when you buy parts for a machine and they come with a warranty, if you're going to not follow the advice of GE, they would not then honor that warranty. So it was important to follow their step-by-step advice. But I can say that we've pretty much now changed all the major parts of that unit. And if we had any challenge, then we would just have to make a decision probably now about replacing the unit, because there is actually nothing else to change in the unit. But we are more comfortable with where we are now, and we really expect that once the current part is put in that unit to be up and functional by the end of this week.
Great. I'll just add to that point. So I spent a fair amount of years in the computer industry. So I used to sell laptops. If you have a laptop with a warranty issue, you have to log a ticket, then support calls you, then they're gonna tell you to go through a checklist of things.
Yeah.
And this is taking place over a week. And then at the end of that week, if nothing that you've tried works, then they'll send somebody to look at it. Then they may try to fix it or replace something. And then maybe 2 to 3 weeks in, if that doesn't work, then they may give you a replacement. So I'm just trying to give persons an appreciation of the process it may take for the vendor to finally say, yes, we're going to replace that, or yes, we're going to honor that warranty. It does take time, especially for providers that are outside Jamaica, because they're likely going to have a local rep. That rep has a checklist of things he has to go through before anything is done or changed. So it is something that takes some time, and 3 weeks for you is a big deal. That's a lot of revenue, a lot of clients not being served. So that's a big gap. All right, next question from Elaine. So the land acquisition is now a moving target, as we were promised a Q2 deadline. what is preventing the completion of the deal? I believe we addressed that as well, but
Yeah,
I'll
because
leave
the
it.
deal is now complete. Yeah.
All right, perfect. And this question, which you addressed again slightly, well, you addressed briefly. MOH
Okay,
is
I can
seeking to
I can add a
address.
little bit more to it too if you want. You can go ahead and read the question. I think I interrupted you, Jermaine. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, what steps are being taken to address the potential shortfall in revenue with the MOH seeking to address its capacity to provide services to the public? How will this affect your contract with the MOH, which I think is an important part to understand as well?
Definitely. So, sure. Thank you for the question. So, public-private partnership is always going to be required in this industry. The current partnership, the philosophy behind it, as I understand, was to reduce patient bedtime by getting to a faster diagnosis and engaging diagnostic imaging facilities to support in so doing. Every hospital, depending on the type of hospital, we have type A, type B, and then we have our clinics, etc., would require some amount of imaging services. They're either going to do it in-house or externally. We would see that the government is moving towards trying to have a minimum level of service in our hospitals. We saw recently newspaper articles about them putting in X-ray units, mammography units, that kind of thing. The truth of the matter is that in the same way our independent facility will be faced with downtime, the hospitals will be faced with downtime, and they need to do something with the patients. In the same way that you have several private entities, even with the hospitals having, if they had all modalities, which they have not articulated a plan to have all, they still will require additional support based on the volume of cases that they have to treat with. So I don't see public-private partnership going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I think I said in an early earnings call that I was told the first way that partnership occurred is that they would actually not charge duty on the machines, and then you would give them services in lieu of the duty or the revenue that was foregone, and that was occurring from as far back as when this company started. So it is not going anywhere. It will over time maybe look a little different in terms of how they design the program, but the current program, the contract was just renewed with the providers, one of them being ourselves. And as I said, all the hospitals don't have all the modalities. So like a fluoroscopy modality, for example, where you do your barium meals and your barium enemas, we may be only one of 3 providers or so who offer, and most of the hospital cases will need to be referred because that's not something that the hospitals across Jamaica actually offer. So it will always be there. The flavor may change, the modality demand may change, but it will always be there. And the one thing I can say is that I think that our quality of work, our commitment to care and working with the public system, I think will always make us be one of the partners that the ministry chooses to engage with.
Okay. One of the points of discussion that we had in our community group was this issue that we're speaking about now. And the point that I made, which I think I mean, you can tell me if you see it the same way, is that
Okay.
as our population ages, the demand for imaging services will increase overall. So even if the government is seeking to provide that base level, as you mentioned, the pool of potential clients will be increasing over the years. So we
Exactly.
saw we did 27,000 scans, I believe it was, in a half from 3 million people. So maybe 5 years from now, that's 50,000, 75,000 scans in a half. I mean, whatever that number is, it should be increasing over the time, even if there's a standard level of service within the industry from the government. The next part that
For
I
sure.
think is important is the fact that there will still be certain, I guess, specializations needed outside of the public sector that the government is likely going to defer to those who are the experts in that field. So
Definitely. I think our own case count in the last 4 years would augur well to the point that you're making in terms of just growth based on lifestyle and population aging.
Lifestyle indeed. All right. So there's another point here being made. There's a constant complaint from potential customers about not being able to reach the company via telephone. How is this being addressed? Or I guess what are the different ways in which the company can be contacted?
All right, great. Thank you for that question again. So we recognize that. I think if I was being completely transparent, that's been a problem for a while. And over time, what the company had been doing had been growing by telephone lines. Well, what we have done, I said earlier, is that we augmented the capacity in our call center. We also are seeing a lot more of the requests coming through our WhatsApp numbers, which we encourage and we also promote. Our WhatsApp numbers, we actually give responses way past the 4 o'clock that we tend to close off on a Friday, and the 5 o'clock that we will close off in the week. We attend to WhatsApp because we actually have somebody working on a shift outside of that dealing with the WhatsApp. And we said it's more favorable for a lot of the patients because then they can also send back an image of the referral form and get all their complete instructions. So we've augmented the size of the team. We're offering through WhatsApp. But what we did with the telephone system is that we just did an upgrade to our PBX, to the most recent release. We are working on getting that back in check now with our automated attendant so that the phone doesn't ring as much before it's automatically answered. And we are actually installing our call monitoring software, not survey, so that we can actually monitor the calls. We can monitor how quickly a call is answered. We can monitor how the duration of a call. We can use it for training opportunities if a call takes too long for the questions to be answered, meaning the person could have been more efficient in answering. We're monitoring performance of each of our agents. So that is something that we will see a difference for in Q3. Increasing the team, increasing the access hours for the appointments, and also changing the whole operations by increasing the PBX capacity, upgrading the software, and putting in call monitoring software. So I hope when we're at the end of Q3 that I'm not going to have as much about that, but I can update actually our shareholders about where we are. But I hope to not have as much negative sentiment about our phone access.
Okay, great. So Rosalie is saying congratulations on the new location. Elaine is saying every time I become disappointed, Mrs. Anderson drops a gem. So I guess Elaine is okay now.
Oh gosh, well, thank you for that. But it's a God's truth and nothing but the truth. But we're working. I mean, I tell people all the time, and I think it's true for our board. We're probably in a personal competition with ourselves, and we're always working to do our best and better than where we were. So we're working.
Okay. And well, we addressed the dividend payment concern, Elaine. So we addressed that.
But Aline knows I can't answer that question by telling him soon, because then somebody from the stock exchange would call me right away and give me a fine, and my mentor on my board would certainly have my head. But
Agreed.
we're working to balance expectations of our shareholders with the plans for growth.
Okay. Krishna is saying, given the several challenges faced over the last 2 quarters and the plans for future growth, will the company seek to consider a dividend? Krishna, we literally just addressed that one, so hopefully.
He sent it before, he typed before.
Yes. The comment is made here, 1 more quarter with that CT machine down or throw it out. We can afford to look like the other guy. Thank you. I'm not sure what other guy you're referring to.
I don't even know anybody else. I know IPCL.
And okay. I see. He built out the same comment. We cannot afford to look like the other guy. This is affecting shareholders' confidence, which I believe you have an appreciation for, and you've stated that you're focusing as best as possible to address those concerns.
Yes. What I want our shareholders to know, and I know it's hard in an instant world, is that when you buy a share, and I say I know it's hard in an instant world, you want to really look for two things in your portfolio. Always have, and it's not investment advice, I'm really just sharing an opinion. In your portfolio, you want to have stocks that you know that are going to appreciate in value over time, and you want to have stocks that pay a healthy dividend, and one stock can represent two for you. But you don't want to be looking at things like your share price and your your dividends just in a short-term way. You want to look and say, ensure that if the company is not paying me a dividend, are they investing in something that's going to give me a greater return in the future, you know? So it's really a balancing act, and I really do understand the need from our shareholders, but I also want to say, look at the plans that the company has, and look at our track record in executing what we say we're going to do, and look at what we're saying about the future, and gain some amount of confidence from that. But I do understand the sentiment and the unease when something is not going as it has in the past, and the anxiety about the new thing really kicking in, and we're working towards it. I promise you that.
Okay, thank you for that, Keisha. I believe the balance is in certainly the landscape is such that the desire for returns, I believe, is at a peak that it's been in the last few years, because it's where we as investors, we're not seeing the type of
Yeah,
returns we were seeing 2018, 2019. So we do hope that
yeah,
the challenges are limited, that the growth is just exponential, and that every investor will be willing to pay more and more so that we can get the appreciation. It's something that I think about when I look at my portfolio, and it's not
yeah,
always easy to think long term, right? Because your bills are due every 30 days. You have
true.
things that you want to do. So thinking long term means that you have to resist certain urges. You have to think about the things that you can't do, and all of that stuff. So it's definitely a
Yeah,
balance.
I understand. I do understand. I do understand. What I would do, if the share price continues to stay around where it is now, is that it's actually, in my opinion, a buying opportunity. So I'm trying to ready myself for that personally. And again, this is not investment advice.
I was just gonna say, not financial advice indeed. So should we well, there's one final question I think worth mentioning here. Are there any
Mhm.
plans for diversification of the company's products and services?
I would say when you say diversification, outside of introducing the new modalities, I don't think there's any modality that we right now are thinking urgently we need to have once we've added the mammography, which is here, and the MRI, which is to come in this financial year. We want to expand interventional services. That will be when we get to the new location. And what we want to do is that we want to have redundancy, which is that you have more than one offering of the modality, so that if you do have units going down, then you can jump and address it. So even though we have that now to some extent, there's more opportunity for redundancies. In our nuclear medicine offering, I know that when we get to the new location, we want to look at some other possibilities there, because we would be getting a new unit, but no other new modalities are immediately. But we keep abreast with what's happening and the developments. And if that opportunity comes up, it'll be something that we come back and share with our shareholders.
Okay.
I do
And
think, though, that there may be opportunity for consolidation in the market, and that's something that we
that's
can,
where I was going
yeah,
actually.
that's something that we can look at for actually augmenting revenues in a shorter space of time. Because we do know that that kind of inorganic growth will actually add revenue immediately if it's a functional place with new locations that would give us extended reach without adding the same quantum of expenses. So that's always something that we have our eyes and ears open about.
Okay, great. You answered my next question, because I was gonna
Oh,
ask, based on especially where opportunities exist to, maybe if you have. So, well, let me ask this question instead. What's the middle ground between an acquisition, right? So, if you don't fully acquire another company, can you have maybe a partnership first preference if services go down on your side to outsource. I'm not sure how that works in
Yeah. So how I see it is, if you're not doing a full out acquisition, there could be a investment in another company where it's significant enough that it will redound to your bottom line. Or it could be that we look at an entity and say that, okay, we could take over the operations of that entity, and then also share in the profits generated. So it will depend on what opportunities in front of us, but we would assess and make the best choice in looking at how it would impact our financial performance and also augment the service that through our brand we're able to give to Jamaicans and healthcare generally.
Okay, great. And the two final comments here. Elaine is
Sure.
saying, please remember to add solar as a source of energy or power for the new location. I think he's concerned about utility costs
Yes.
staying down.
Yes. So we would do that to the extent that it is possible. Remember, a lot of our equipment is run on three-phase power supplies, and so it's not as easy to just convert to solar. But we are definitely going to be working with the best providers as we look at the new location, what's possible for us, definitely.
And finally, well, I think we might have addressed this one already. Will the source of funding for the new location be bond, loan, or equity? Elaine, that is pending board discussion. So we did say that two earnings calls from now, we may have some more clarity
Yeah.
as to what that would look like. But it's
Yeah.
very likely that there will be the need for additional cash based on just the company's cash position right now.
Yes, man. And if you look at our balance sheet, certainly, yes.
Yes. All
Mhm.
right. So I believe that's it for our questions. I do want to ask you, Keisha, before we close out, one question that I have in mind for you is how do you see the just your thoughts on the rest of the year, your thoughts on maybe where the industry is right now in terms of just the landscape overall, the factors that may impact the company's profitability, and just what shareholders can look forward to, or what would we be talking about or looking forward to for the next earnings call? Not necessarily a major update from the company, but what may be impacting or worth noting that we may need to discuss there.
Okay, so internally, I think you're looking for a return to the levels of performance that you are accustomed to seeing in terms of our revenue growth and our net profit. I think as it relates to the landscape, that we will see development with our hospitals being better equipped. But as I said before, that's not going to significantly impact the demand for services given the aging population and some of the lifestyle choices that are resulting, unfortunately, in some different healthcare issues. As it relates to the industry, I do think in the next 2 years or so, we may see some level of consolidation. I think also that with the developments in healthcare and offerings, there may also be a shift in some of the scan types required. I think that as an industry, we have to explore the developments with AI. I don't know enough about it now to say, but at our attendance at the conferences and just the conversations occurring, I think will enlighten us somewhat in that area. But it's something for us to look out for. We had an interesting conversation about some of the offerings of nuclear medicine at our recently concluded board meeting and some of the challenges where when you're diagnosed and you actually need to get some of the treatments required that in Jamaica, because we don't actually produce the isotopes used, that our Jamaicans who can afford still have to go overseas to get that, and those who are here and can't afford actually may face more dire consequences. I think there is some opportunity for discourse in that area between the public institutions and the private providers if the technology doesn't develop in a faster time frame to address that. But I do think that we have to look to some of those new or solutions that are not available on the island to actually help to augment the services. I think generally for the market and as it affects our overall share price and stuff, I think that we're currently operating in a soft market. And again, this is not investment advice, but I think that the year 2024 may see some rebounding of the equity market in Jamaica. And so investors could probably look to that. But again, it's not investment advice. But I think what we are committed to doing as a board is to remaining abreast of all, or to keep abreast of all of the issues and to ensure that we are enlightened so that we can make the best strategic choices on behalf of our shareholders.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Keisha. I believe that we have a lot to look forward to for Image Plus. So, great development about to take place over the next 15 months, growth in number of scans, growth in revenue over last year, and just the commitment in the areas that you've mentioned in terms of responsiveness to the clients, in terms of phone lines, ensuring that all the technology is in place to have that be a smooth process. And so, thank you for everything that you've shared. I think, investors and shareholders should be comfortable with the completeness and transparency of your responses. And I'm sure if there's any reason for them to contact you, you are very much accessible. I do think, based on what we discussed,
actually have a shareholder. Sorry to cut you, Jeremy. We actually have a shareholder email address, and if Cherise is listening, she can remind me. Okay, shareholder. Cannot remember it. No, but what I could probably do,
I'll post it in the comments under the video so that persons can see it. And I do believe I was offered at your AGM a shareholder discount for more persons to take up. I believe the take up is currently a little low on that, so persons do have the opportunity. I'm sure persons are coming in as shareholders and they don't know about the discount. So maybe I know it was advertised on your social media.
Yes, it was. But and we actually haven't seen as much usage as I thought we would have. I think we registered 2 people since the AGM for the shareholder discount, one just being as late as yesterday, actually. So I remind our shareholders again that Seeker, it's an opportunity for you to get a benefit from the company in which you're invested. So,
exactly.
Definitely. I think Cherise came to try and tell me, I think the email address is shareholder@apex-radiology.com, but of course I will confirm and you can put it in.
I don't want to confirm it before I post it. Okay, great. Do you have any final thoughts or comments you want to make before we close out?
I just want to say thank you to our team and our referring physicians. I want to thank every member of our hardworking team who day in, day out try to do their best to deliver excellence in service and to actually ensure that we are supporting our patients through sometimes what are moments of anxiety in getting a scan done. They really work hard, and one thing I can say about them is that if we get any feedback about ways to improve, they take it graciously and we aim to do better the next time. I want to thank our doctors who have put under so much more demand for radiologists to do the increased case count, and even though we're expanding the team, it is still a lot that we're asking of them, and they continue to deliver with quality. And I really want to thank our referring physicians and our marketing team that goes out and interacts with them, both from the public and the private system, who they give us feedback all the time. And we really feel like it's a true partnership in that we are partnering together around the care for their patient. And so I really want to thank them for the continued trust that they place in us as we do our best.
Thank you so much, Keisha. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you at the next earnings call.
Thank you, Jermaine.
With over 20 years in providing quality service, Apex Radiology is Jamaica's premier diagnostic facility. Our services include CT scans, nuclear medicine, ultrasounds, x-rays, and more. We have 3 easily accessible locations in the Kingston area and 1 in Ocherez. With our mission to provide exceptional and affordable healthcare, Apex Radiology is a clear choice for your diagnostic needs.